Hey friends, and welcome to the Happy Hour with Jamie Ivey podcast. I'm your host, Jamie, and I'm so excited that you're listening today. Every week I invite a girlfriend to join me on the show, and we chat about the big things in life, the little things in life, and everything in between. Guys, I just have to say before we get going that this past weekend was our very first Happy Hour live event, and it was absolutely amazing. I literally could not stop smiling the entire night. Everything went perfect. I want to say thank you to everyone that came out. Some of you flew in from Washington and Idaho. Some of you drove in from Louisiana and Arkansas, and some right here in Texas. And I just cannot say enough of how honored I was to be your host and to welcome you to my home, let my husband cook for you, and let us put on our very first happy hour. We're already talking about planning more events, more happy hour events, so stay tuned for more info. And when we let you know about that, we're going to let you know when the next one is, and we're also going to let you know when we put in the audio for this event. So if you missed it, I am going to let you hear some of it. There's parts that we're just going to be reserved for what if you were here. And then I'll let you hear most of it. And then I hope that you get to join me for the next one. So thank you, thank you, thank you. It was so much fun and so beautiful. Before we get going, I want to thank our sponsor for today's show, Prep Dish. And Prep Dish, Allison the chef was actually at the live show. So that was super fun to have her there. But Prep Dish is a healthy subscription-based meal planning service. And so it takes some of the best things that us women are wanting to provide for our bodies and for our families' bodies. And that's healthy meals. And it's also letting someone do the work for us of meal planning. Every week you're going to receive an email. And in that email, it's going to have a grocery list plus instructions for prepping your meals ahead of time. So then you're going to spend about 2 to 3 hours prepping your meals on a Sunday afternoon or Monday morning, whatever works for you. And then you're going to have meals ready for the rest of the week. Guys, it's the answer to the what is for dinner that happens every day around 4:30 at my house. Allison, the chef who creates all of these wonderful meals, she's offering listeners of the Happy Hour a special rate of $4 for the first month. And so that is $1 for a weekly meal plan. You cannot beat that, and you're going to love it. There's paleo and gluten-free options available. Visit prepdish.com/happy hour to start today. If you need a code, use happy hour. So prepdish.com is where you go, and you're going to love all that Prep Dish has to offer. Guys, today you're listening to episode number 79, and today's guest is Rachel Garlinghouse. She's a writer, a speaker, and adoptive mom. We have a great conversation about how her health issues 10 years ago this month set the course for her domestic, transracial, open adoptions, and then we also talk about the greatness of Honest Toddlers. You're going to love that at the end. Before we get to my conversation with Rachel, I want to make sure you're subscribed to the show on iTunes. You may or may not have heard it yet, but we launched a shorter weekend episode of the Happy Hour to air every other week. The first one aired last Friday, and it was with my friend Jess Connolly. You're going to love it. But if you're not subscribed to the show, you're going to miss out the bonus episodes like this. So make sure that you're subscribed. It's super easy. Just go to jamieivey.com/iTunes. It's going to take you straight there. And just click on the little purple button that says subscribe. And then every time a new show is released, it's just going to pop up on your phone. And we're also over on Stitcher. If you're an Android user, you can head on over there. Okay, guys, here is my conversation with Rachel. How are you?
Great. I'm doing really, really well. I'm very excited about today.
Thanks for coming on the Happy Hour.
Yeah, thank you so much. I've been listening to some of your podcasts, and it's just been fantastic.
Well, I'm glad. And we've been trying to do this for a while.
That's okay, though. We have children, and
I think that's all kinds of things.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And you just moved, didn't you? You just got a new house.
I just moved, and so we're settling in, and that just comes with a bunch of fun stuff and a bunch of difficult stuff. Like we just found out we have to go to a whole new air conditioning unit, so that's fun, you know.
Oh, right. And you live in Texas. You can't live without air conditioning.
Oh, our air is running on right now upstairs. And so downstairs we haven't had air for about a week. Not a big deal. I mean, it's February, but it would be on if it wasn't broken. So there's that.
Oh, my goodness.
Where do you live?
I'm right outside of St. Louis. We're in Edwardsville, Illinois.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah. I said one time on the show that I had never been to Illinois, which was a complete lie because I've been to Chicago. So I don't know why I thought Chicago was its own state, but I have been to Illinois. So there's that.
Okay, good.
Okay, Rachel, will you just start by telling everyone just a little bit about you and what you do and all that kind of fun stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everybody. My name's Rachel Garlinghouse. I have 3 children by domestic, infant, open, transracial adoption. That's
I love all of that. Is a mouthful.
I got to fit all that in.
All
definitely.
Of that, yes.
Yeah. I've been married for 12 years to my husband. We've been together 17 years, feels like a lifetime. I taught at a university for 8 years part-time, and I retired. My husband hates that word. I retired to be to stay at home with my kids and to write. So since I've retired, I'm busier than ever. I'm writing books and articles and doing awesome podcasts like this one, and just yeah, just kind of living what I've always wanted to do now.
I love that. I love when people are saying that they're living exactly what they want to do. Isn't that a fun thing to be doing?
Absolutely. I think like when you're in that place, it's such a great example too for your kids that you're this happy person, and that it just spreads to your children. If you're not a happy mom and kind of pursuing what you want to do, then it trickles down through your whole family. So,
Okay, speaking of kids, that was a mouthful. You said, let me see if I can get it right. Infant, domestic, transracial, open, adoption. Did I get them all?
yes, ma'am, that's it. All four.
I love it. That would categorize one of my adoptions as well. And so tell them, I really like this morning when I was reading the stuff that you had written to me about your story. I was just so, I just told my husband just now before I came up here, he was asking who I was going to talk to. And I was like, no, I don't know her. We've never met, but she has a great story. And I think stories change lives, and I think stories inspire, and I think stories encourage. And as I was reading your little bit of the snippet that you shared with me this morning, I was like, wow, you have a lot to say. You've had a lot happen to you in your 12 years of marriage and parenting journey, haven't you?
Yeah, absolutely. We've had, when you get married and you think things are going to go a particular way and you have a plan for your life. I don't know about you. I'm a type A girl, so I have a plan.
I have a plan and a spreadsheet is what I have as well.
Right. I'm like, I have a plan and it's going to go according to plan, and that's what's going to happen. And God's like, okay.
So a long time ago,
Absolutely.
like before you became a mom, you were very, very sick. Can you take us back to that and tell us about what happened?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Steve and I had just gotten married, and I decided to start grad school. So I was teaching. I was 22 years old and teaching college freshmen. I was barely older than them, and I had started teaching and going to grad school to earn my master's degree. And that November, I got really sick. I came down with some virus. My body felt very bizarre, like I'd never felt before. And from that point forward, for a year and a half, I just got progressively worse. I lost 40 pounds.
Oh, my word.
It was awful. Even though I was eating, I would say well over 5,000 calories a day. Like I just couldn't eat or drink enough. I was really sick. So I went to the doctor probably 15 times, 5 different doctors, and I was like, there's something wrong with me. And they just said, well, maybe it's, chronic sinus infections, or maybe it's this or that. And my doctor finally got so aggravated with me. He goes, I just think you have anorexia. And I said,
that's what he came down with?
yeah, right.
Wow. Uh-huh.
And I said, I don't think I'm coming to you and begging for help and, making this, this up. So he just really, didn't know what to do. And so one day, I was at home and I lay down for a nap, and my husband kept calling me, but I didn't pick up the phone. And so finally I managed to sort of wake up and see I'd missed all these calls, and I called him, and I think he knew there was something wrong. I couldn't catch my breath.
Because of the way you were talking, or because you'd been was napping a normal thing for you, or what?
I mean, I napped from 10 in the morning till 1 on a Friday, so it was not normal. It was just kind of, so he could hear my voice, and he said, I want to call the ambulance. And being the type A control freak I am, I said, no, we don't need to make a big stinking deal about this, right? So he goes, okay, I'm going to come home. And I said, okay, fine. And he got home and he took me to the hospital, and lo and behold, I walked in and they said, girl, you should be dead. Like my body was in a state called diabetic ketoacidosis, which means your body essentially eats itself. It's
now, had that been happening for can your body sustain doing that for a long time? Had that been happening to your body for a while, or was that something that was just brought on by all the sickness?
So I don't know how long I was in that state before I went to the hospital, but when you're in that state, you quickly become deathly ill. So I just know that the doctor came into the room and his eyes were huge, and he said, you shouldn't be alive. Like wow. My numbers weren't even on any medical chart. They were so high. And he said, I don't know how you're alive. And I was like, okay, thanks for that. So they carted me to the ICU, and it was traumatizing. In fact, I'm going to cry, Jamie. Oh, goodness. it's been 10 years this next month. And so it's really cool that we get to talk this, this season, I guess, or this month, because it's very, very traumatic. It's hard to drive past that hospital. But it turned out to be, oddly enough, the thing that was the hardest for me turned out to be the best thing that ever happened. And that's because without my diagnosis and without this disease, we wouldn't have our kids. So, yeah.
So
Thanks
you're...
cry, Jamie. No.
That's what we do on the happy hour. We bring out the tears.
I know I need to be happy.
So you're in the hospital and ICU. How long were you in ICU?
I think about 3 days, but I'll be honest with you, I don't remember much from that, or even the year and a half I was sick. It really just wiped me out. But I was in there for 3 days, and then they moved me to regular floor and sent this lovely nurse down to talk to me about, using needles and injecting insulin and counting carbohydrates. And girl, I wasn't even listening to her. I was so mad and so sick. And she knew I wasn't listening. She was a very experienced nurse, and she said, let's talk about having kids.
And you're like, okay.
Right. Okay, I'll listen, I guess. So we kind of sat up in the hospital bed, and I said, okay, well, what about it? And she goes, well, diabetics, you can have a healthy pregnancy, but there's a lot of complications. And in that moment, I thought about adoption. It popped into my head, unsolicited, I guess. It just kind of popped into my head, and I never let go of it. It was like, I was at my rock bottom in my life, and I didn't know what was going to happen going forward, but I knew adoption was going to be part of that story.
So did your husband feel the same way?
About a year later.
Okay, I was going to ask. That's a lot of news to take in. One, you're sitting there with your wife who almost died.
Right.
Two, now they're telling you this information that is just even more to take in. Like, oh my gosh, I almost lost my wife, and now we might not be able to biologically create children because it would be so hard on her body. This is a lot,
Right.
So what did that year journey look like for you? Because you said you never let go of it, but it took him about a year.
Absolutely. So it was, thinking a lot about it, reading anything I could get my hands on, talking to anyone who had built their family by adoption. And I think he saw, after how sick I was and going through that first year, that there was just no way I was going to voluntarily put my body through a pregnancy. It wasn't going to happen. It could be dangerous for the child as well. And, not to, I guess, diabetics can definitely have healthy pregnancies, but I was just not in a place where that was going to happen.
And you had been so sick. I mean,
Right.
It's not like that you found out you were diabetic really early into this. You almost died before you found out. So
Sure.
I'm sure that tainted a lot of that decision as well.
Absolutely. Well, and the fact that we also knew that we had a chance of passing on the disease to any biological children. It was a fairly slim chance. It was like 3 to 5%, but to me that was pretty scary.
Yeah.
3 to 5% is still significant. So we just, yeah.
So tell me, even before we talk about adoption, because 3 of my 4 kids came to our family through adoption, and so I love talking about adoption, and I have so many things I want to talk to you about, especially one of the books that you wrote. But I first want to talk about just dealing with this disease. What was it like feeling? I know you did not feel like there was nothing wrong because you were sick for so long, but one day you didn't have a diagnosis and the next day you did. So we'll just take it from there. What did it feel like getting that diagnosis?
It was 2 things. It was relief because I knew I wasn't crazy at that point, that, there really was something wrong with me. But it was also devastation. And, the nurse who came in and talked to me, when she had said, you have to mourn the loss of your body failing you. And I was like, what? Like, what are you talking about? The psychological whatever. But she was right. You have to mourn the loss of your body failing you, and knowing that you can do great things. You can exercise and eat this organic, vegetarian, gluten-free, whatever it is, diet, and you can do all these things, but sometimes bad things happen. Autoimmune diseases happen to the healthiest individuals. And so it was a lot to take. It was a loss. It felt like, as she told me, someone had passed away. It really, to this day I get emotional about it, and it was 10 years ago.
Yeah, because you feel like you lost a part of you that you never knew you were going to have to give up.
Right. And just the fact that even to this day, it's like certain things we have to consider that maybe other people don't. Because you live in Texas, it gets really hot. It gets hot here in the St. Louis area too, and that plummets my blood sugars when it's hot. So I could be out with my kids at a pool and all of a sudden my blood sugar's dropping to 50, which is 50 points below what it should be. Or, there's so much more planning. There's so much more strategy. Airport security is a nightmare with me because I have medical devices strapped to my body.
Yeah.
It's just, it's a lot. It's a daily disease that slaps you in the face and says you have a problem, and I'm going to remind you of that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I have a couple of girlfriends here. I have one that I know of in particular I'm thinking about that has diabetes as well, and she wears a pump. It's attached to her. Am I correct? Would that be what it would be? Yes. And then two other girlfriends that have different autoimmune diseases. And I don't know. Would you educate us and myself? I feel like that there's not a lot known about autoimmune diseases because it seems like it's this silent thing, like when one of my girlfriends told me that she struggles with this, I didn't even know. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Right. Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think that most of the time it's a silent disease. People don't notice I wear an insulin pump and a continuous glucose monitor because they're under my shirt. So it's like, it's not known that I'm, I guess, diabetic, although I do tell people when I'm around them because I want them to know in case there's a medical emergency. But it is very, I think some of the strongest people have autoimmune diseases, and because of that, it's so hard. People view us as, when I was diagnosed, someone said to me, well, at least it's not cancer. And I thought, what? Who says that? Or someone else said, Rachel, you're one of the strongest people we know. If anyone can handle this disease, it's you. And I thought, I kind of get that that's supposed to be a compliment, but it's like we are sometimes not allowed to be weak when we have an autoimmune disease because it is very much sink or swim. If I don't take my insulin, I'm going to die. So it's not like, there's no sort of like a cheating on the diet kind of thing. There's no cheating. It's very much like you have to be on it 24/7, 365. There is no break from it. So
what would you say? You just mentioned a couple things that people said to you that kind of were like, you're trying to encourage me, but thanks again. What are something that does encourage someone who just finds out they have a diagnosis like this?
I think one, still being treated like a person, not being, I have a really good friend with MS, and she said the worst thing people do is they lean into you and whisper, how are you? Like you're on death's door all the time, or they treat you like you're fragile. And it's like, you need to remember that they are first and foremost a person, not the disease. And it's okay to say, check in with them like, hey girl, how are you doing with, whatever, is there anything I can do to help you? But I think the most encouraging thing is just to bring them or do something for them that, you would do otherwise, regardless of the disease. Like take them a cup of coffee or, give them a blank journal or say, hey, do you want to meet up and go for a drink or, whatever it is. You need to still treat that person like an individual because diseases scare people, we don't really know what to do with them, especially needle diseases. People, I could never stick myself with a needle. Oh my gosh, I could never, see my own blood, whatever. I'm like, you could if it meant you would die.
Exactly.
If you didn't do it, right? But it's like, you just need to remember that person is still that friend or that cousin or,
Yeah. It just makes me think I'm going to talk to you about adoption lingo as well in a minute. And I think I've come so far in my view of people using like, let's say like quote unquote wrong lingo is that two things have happened. Number one, I've become more secure in where I am and my family and stuff, and I've become more gracious towards people. And I've also, a third thing, I've become more like intuitive to figure out, is this person just, they don't know, or are they being ridiculously mean? You know what I mean? So a couple things, and I'm sure that you've walked through that even with your diagnosis of feeling like, are they being insensitive? Or are they just naive or, whatever? And then having grace for them. It's so hard, isn't it? It's just so hard but I'm so glad that you get to educate,
Right. I think that I always try to respond, like you said, with grace. And a lot of people think that there's one type of diabetes and they associate, so they don't understand the difference. So I do try to say, well, I have a different type than probably what you're thinking of or, things like that. So I educate, but also within limits, just because I don't want to go around talking about diabetes all the time while my kids are throwing around the box of tampons at Target, which has definitely probably happened. It's like, so you have to strike this balance, but I do lean toward educating people, and I found that by doing so, it does open doors. I've made friends because I've decided to share a little piece of my story.
Oh,
so.
For sure. Okay, so in the hospital room, the nurse is talking to you, and she gets your attention by talking about children. You thought adoption, and it never left you, and it took your husband about a year to get on the boat. And then, where did y'all do? What happened next? I mean, I know that you have domestic adoptions, but for someone who's listening that doesn't quite understand that journey, what were some of the first steps that you and your husband did?
Absolutely. So we decided we were going to adopt from Guatemala. That
Mm.
was our first step. I had a cousin who was adopted from Guatemala. So we went to a meeting at an agency and they said Guatemala's closing.
Yeah.
It's not going to be an option.
And
And I
what
was
year was this? Sorry, let me know that.
I believe it was, let's see, 2006, I
Okay.
think, 2006, 2007. And so we said, okay, well, we'll do foster care adoption. And we started to pursue that route. And then we came into contact with a few people who said, here's what you really need to know about it. And I was like, oh, I guess I was pretty naive, not understanding it. So domestic infant adoption, which is adopting a newborn, of course, from the United States, was sort of our last choice, and oddly enough, that is the route that we ended up taking. So it just was sort of a process by elimination, I think, and
Yeah.
really going through and saying, what do we want to do? And that's just kind of where we ended up.
I think
It
that's
wasn't.
so funny because a lot of times people think that you just have this like aha moment of like we've
Mhm.
always known we were going to adopt from China, and I'm sure that does happen for sure. But our story is kind of the same as yours. We were surrounded by people at our church adopting from China. This was 2004. And so we just kind of assumed we would adopt internationally because honestly, I'd never seen anything different. I did not know anyone that had adopted domestically or through foster care, which is drastically different in my life now. I know way more children adopted through the foster care system with our group of friends now. But anyhow, at the time we just walked into an adoption agency, like this is naive. Oh my gosh, we were babies. And we were like, we don't know what we're doing, but we really think that we're supposed to add to our family through adoption. And then it just kind of led us down those roads as well. And we ended up domestic infant as well. So that's kind of,
Right.
it's funny how you just kind of, you start walking down the path and it sometimes changes and you don't even realize it.
Right, absolutely. What was hard too, as you were talking, I was just thinking about, I remember with our first date, we just walked in and said, oh, you got Christian in your title? We're going to adopt through you. Like we had no idea what we were doing. I mean, none. But I do remember they asked me for a medical letter from my doctor stating the condition of my health. And I was terrified.
Mm,
Like, are they going to reject me? I'm never going to become a mom. Like, it was just another time my disease was kind of thrown in my face again. And I
yeah.
realized I had to ask for it and why they did, but it was just another one of those moments where I was like, okay, like, are
Yeah.
we ever going to become parents? And
Yeah.
it's just, those fears though I found are so normal among families. They go to adopt and we have all these fears about rejection or, what's going to happen and what's not. And I've just learned God has really used this to teach me that I have zero control over
Oh my
anything.
gosh. Hello. That's like he takes I think maybe I have a big control idol. I'm not going to speak for you, but I think that adoption has really really kind of ruffled my feathers a lot with that. For
Okay.
sure. Cuz you zero control. I mean, you have none.
Right.
It's crazy.
Absolutely.
It's crazy. I remember thinking, I don't know if you had any thoughts like this. We were making again, I haven't adopted domestically since 2005. So anything information I say could be different now, but we would make these profile books
Mm-hmm.
and it lists out, I'm sure that you do this as well, your family and everything. And I remember when I was making it, Rachel, all I could think about was like, what if I picked the wrong picture? Like, what if a birth mom looks at this and she thinks I look ugly in this picture? Or what if our house isn't, or what if I don't get this turned in time? We're going to miss. I mean, it was just this such a
Oh,
big
yes.
cycle of control. And Aaron one day looked at me and he's like, Jamie, it's impossible for us to miss our child because like God has that child already. No matter what we do, we cannot miss it. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna breathe deep and it's gonna be okay. Oh,
Yeah,
so
I was pretty neurotic. I mean, it was bad. My husband's like, you need to calm down. And it was
uh,
just hard. I mean, but it's such an emotional process and your life is waiting on what's going to happen.
I
I
know it's
mean,
crazy,
they tell you go on vacation. Don't worry about it. You'll get your call when no, no.
right?
No, I was upset. I was just back when we had an answering machine. That tells you how long ago
Exactly,
we
I
like
know.
waited it up. But I'm like checking it every time I came home from work. I'd be like, "Do we have any messages?" Like I can't
Oh,
possibly miss the most important phone call of my
imagine if
life.
we would have had our phones now that have our email on them. I mean, I would have been refreshing every 5 minutes
Right.
back in the days. So I know you have 3 children. Am I right?
Yes,
Were these 3 separate adoptions?
yes,
Okay.
3 separate adoptions, but all using the same agency.
Awesome. And I'm going to ask you a couple questions. I am completely okay if you say I don't want to talk about that because I do that
Sure.
too. Like everyone's story is their own story. I don't want to ask stories, but I do have a question. Are any of your kids biologically related?
No.
Okay.
Mm.
I get asked that a lot about my 2 kids from Haiti. They're not biologically related, but Well, this is
we always just say yes. You
because the question
word it differently, but
exactly because the question I worded it differently because I'm an adoptive mom. The question
right.
usually comes, are any of them brother and sister? And I always say yes, they are.
Right.
But they're not biologically related.
I go, can you not tell by the way they're wrestling each other in the mud, like as I'm trying to have this conversation with you? Like,
yes.
Obviously. Yeah, I always just say, well, of course they're real. So, you know, we get the real question a lot. But I always say, of course they're real siblings.
Look at them, okay, so you have 3 kids through adoption, and I was looking through one of your books this morning. It's called Come Rain or Come Shine, A White Parent's Guide to Adopting and Parenting Black Children. Can I ask, like, what made you think I want to write this book?
I had always been writing books. I mean, I had my first book that I wrote when I was 4, and it was called The Princess and the Gold. And it was like, I just always knew I was going to write. So after my diagnosis, I tried like 6 times to write a book about my diagnosis and everything that happened, and it wasn't working. Have you ever done that? Like, you're going to I'm going to make this project work. It's going to work. It's going to work. And it just doesn't.
Yeah.
You know, it's not your window to go through. And so, after we adopted, you know, I was trying to find books on transracial adoption, and there were so few.
Yep.
And the few that were there were textbooks. I'm like, I got out of grad school. I'm done with textbooks.
Right.
I'm done. I'm done with the bolded vocabulary words. I'm done with the index. I'm done. You know, I'm over it. And I thought, if I, as an English major and, you know, as a writing teacher, can't get through these books, how are everyday individuals who hate English class, you know, how are they going to read these books?
Yeah.
They're not. And so there needed to be something conversational and something interesting that had a lot of resources. So if people wanted to go learn about a different topic. So I just decided, you know what, why not me? Why not write this book?
Yeah.
And it was one of the best decisions I ever made. Definitely.
So you just decided because you couldn't find any. Here it is. And I have to say, I'm so thankful that you wrote this because this is something, this is a book. This is what I was thinking about this. This is a book that a parent could read. This is a book that a grandparent could read. This is a book that a teacher could read. You know, I think it really spans a big spectrum of who this book would appeal to. Did you go out looking to do that, or was it something that just kind of happened?
I think because I was an educator, I knew that the book needed to speak to different individuals, right? Like it needed to be for a wide audience. Or I even thought for a social worker, I even noticed when we were adopting, a lot of social workers hadn't read like a fourth of the books I had read on adoption. And so I was like, it needs to be for them too, because they're very busy, overworked, underpaid individuals. They need something that they can hand to people that says, you know, take this book and read this, you know? So I really did write it for as many different people as possible.
Okay, I love it. Okay, I want to talk to you about a couple things in here. You ready? I'm just going to throw things at you and we can talk about it. Open adoption. So
we have 3 of them.
And 3 of them. I want you to speak to, like, tell me why. Tell me how that, we also have an open adoption as well, just so you know where I'm coming from. But tell me, why'd you choose that? Why'd you want that? How does that work for your family? What are some of the fears you had? Tell me about that.
So we were not open to an open adoption when we entered into adoption, but this is another way that whatever your plans are get thrown out the window. Right. So we were like, you know, a semi-open, I had just written about this for a website, you know, a semi-open where, you know, you have some contact through the agency, but no visits, things like that. And I thought, this is safe. I'll be the real mom. I won't have to worry about, you know, all my weird insecurities. And, you know, so we were like, let's go semi-open. The day we went to court to get custody of our oldest child, her birth mother had gone into court immediately before us, and we had to meet. We're sitting in the same, like, section of seats. There's no, like, I mean, I guess we could awkwardly, like, stare forward and not talk to each other. But the minute we met, the walls fell. Like, I just knew that openness was okay. Yeah. And so ever since then, we've had open adoptions. I mean, we had a lot of fears, but when you actually meet a person face to face is much different than, you know, what you're checking on your paperwork. So
I agree. Yeah. That's really,
I don't think it's for everyone, and I don't think that every child wants it necessarily. So as our children get older, they kind of voice, do they want openness? How much do they want? And we're just really going with what each of our children, what they want and need.
I think that's great to talk about as well. I remember we have an open adoption with my son Deacon's first mom, and we would see her often. Like, she would come to one of Aaron's shows, or she'd be coming through Austin and we go to dinner, or, you know, whatever. There were like a handful of times each year that we were all together, like eating a meal or whatever. And we always called her by her name, and that's who it is. And there's a picture of her in Deacon's room, all that kind of stuff. But I remember when Deacon was about 4 years old, and we've had an open adoption since the beginning. When he was about 4 years old, she came for a visit. We said hi, whatever. And it was never really like, oh, let's give Deacon some space. It was just like we were all visiting with her. You know, it wasn't kind of this, it wasn't weird at all. It was completely normal. But I remember when he was about 4, she left, and he went, wait, is that the same woman that is my birth mom? And it's just funny because we had, of course, told him that a million times, but he was 3 and 2 and 4 and it had never clicked. And then I saw it click all of a sudden, and I thought, I really like that. I like that we just were always talking about this, and then one day it clicked, and there it was. You know, so that was kind of how our journey has gone with that. But us too, like you, my husband did not want an open adoption. Because of the same fears that a lot of people have. Well, she's going to come steal our kid, or, you know, whatever. And I read a book. It was called Dear Birth Mom. Have you read that?
Yes.
And it was like the first time I ever even thought about open adoption. And I remember after I read it, I thought, I don't know how I can. What it did for me is it made me think, if I were in her shoes, I just want to know that my kid is okay. You know, all of those feelings I started feeling. And that's kind of what transformed us into wanting it.
Well, and then you realize too, like you said, it's our kid. It is still her kid, and it's still our kid. And there's no need to have a hierarchy or whatever. We make things more complicated probably than they need to be. You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
it is what it is. They have a first mom and they have us, and, there's no war or competition or fear. I mean, open adoption is definitely far more complicated, and there are really hard seasons. However, I would say overall, it has been worth it. And for us to be able to look our kids in the eye and say, we did everything we could and everything we can to keep that door open for your benefit. Mm-hmm. And that's all we can do. And what happens, happens.
Yeah. I think about that sometimes with our children that we adopted from Haiti. We, we just don't have that luxury of living in the same state as them, or lots of even texting or whatever. That just doesn't exist for us. But we would be able to contact both of their moms, and we plan to take them back one day to meet. So that's exciting. Oh, I was going to tell you this. I remember when my son Deacon, who we adopted domestically, when people would ask me, they would say something about, like, do you know anything about his real mom? Mm-hmm. And I'm telling you, when we were newly parents through adoption, I would get so mad. Like, literally, I would get so furious. But on the inside, I wasn't one to, like, be furious to them. And Aaron would always be like, well, you should say something if you're that mad. And I'm like, I'm just so mad. Like, I'm his mom. And then, like I said earlier, just like walls started coming down, and I started to realize that there is no us without her, Right. And so yes. I think that's something that I really wish that more people would understand as well. It's like the value of that person for my family and for my kid's life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, like, the walls do come down, and I get that, like, I was once the person using the incorrect terminology. Like, if you had come to me probably, 10 or 12 years ago and we would have a conversation, I would have said the wrong things,
Yes, me too.
So we always try to just be really, we educate individuals without giving them, giving away our kids' stories, to a level that's not appropriate. So we're always, just saying, well, open adoption works great for us, and here's why. And usually people are willing to listen and learn. So I feel like I'm just always very aware as my kids get older to do what works for them, because they don't always want to stop and have a conversation about, adoption with someone when we're in the middle of, Barnes and Noble, right. Or, whatever it is. So, but it is kind of tough because I'm basically an adoption educator for a living. So it's very interesting to, like, strike a balance, but people generally do mean well. And the real thing doesn't, except for the real siblings, I always try to say, well, of course they are, because mm-hmm. one day one of my kids did ask me, are we real siblings? And I thought, and now it's getting to them,
exactly.
The things that say. I said, well, of course you are, but your birth siblings are your real siblings too. It's all real. Yeah. None of it's fake.
Yeah. That's what I'm the same way as you, is I'm like, it bothers me when my kids hear these things, because they haven't had as much time in life to, like, decipher through these words, and what they hear is just reality to them. So I don't want that to be their reality of what they hear. By any means. How do you, because I find it really interesting that you do make a living talking about adoption, but you do a very great job of being guarded about your kids' stories. How do you do that, and why do you do that?
I will tell you, it has not been easy. I've mulled over it a lot. Like, well, I know I would reach more people if I shared more of my kids' stories, and I know that because I've seen it with other individuals. But for me, and because of our open adoptions and just because of our individual situations, I feel like, I don't want to use my children, I guess, as like, or spotlight them or use them in any sort of way or their stories for some sort of personal gain. Mm-hmm. So I feel like the boundaries that we've created, which is, we're willing to talk about adoption. And of course I run a large adoption support group, and, we have all these friends by adoption, and they see and know my kids and things like that. But I just feel like they should have control over their stories. And I'm scared, once you put something out there, you can't ever take it back, especially now, how it is, with, everything being online. And I don't, I write about transracial adoption, and it's highly controversial still. And I don't trust strangers with my kids' stories. And so I just, if you're my girlfriend, we can talk about things. But if you're not, I don't feel like I should really put it out there. When they're old enough to decide, then I feel like they're more than welcome to share what they want to. Yeah. But I just, and especially when they're struggling, and I mean, I'm sure you know this as a mom by adoption, like your kids go through some hard times. Mm-hmm. They'll go through times where they don't understand why they were placed for adoption, or why they can't see birth mom, or why, and those are things we try to deal with privately, because I feel like, I'd be mortified if my mom had ever, if there was internet back then, and posted some of the things I said and did, or, I don't want to humiliate them in any way. And I want to respect their first families who chose us, in these open adoptions. So,
yeah. And this is such a struggle of mine, because as you're talking, I walk through the tension of this as well a lot. Whereas when my kids were younger, and especially when my son first came from Haiti, I blogged a lot about the trials and the hardships of parenting and all this other kind of stuff. And as my kids have gotten older, my kids are 12, 10, 10, and 8. As they've gotten older, I'd say in the past 3 years, I just don't feel comfortable blogging about a lot of stuff that we're going through, because my kids are older and because it will never go away. Like, it's on the internet forever. But then I also feel this tension, and I'm sure that you do as well, this tension of but I feel as though sometimes I'm presenting a reality that is not true, if that makes sense, by not talking about some of the things, but I just can't, because it's my kids, so I don't feel like I don't want to be the person to talk about that. But I also feel like we have this group of, hundreds and thousands of adoptive parents coming up that aren't hearing some of the struggles, because it's hard to tell them, Right. But I know the solution, and the solution is one-on-one conversations. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's why. Yeah, I think that when you have those individual relationships with people who are in your life and kind of get where you are, it's one thing. But it's, I've written hundreds of articles, and, there's internet trolls and crazies out there who will respond with all sorts of things. And I just think of those individuals, and I write something, and I think, do I trust these people with my kids' stories? And the answer is no. I mean, we wouldn't trust a stranger with a lot of information. We're not going to go up to a stranger and say, hey, you want my social security number and how much I weigh? Right. We just don't give away certain things. So I know what you're saying. I don't want to present that everything is rosy perfect, but I also think that individuals who, grow where you're planted kind of deal, people who are close to us can come to us and say, hey, let's talk about some struggles, and I will tell them.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's good. I think it's important. This is what I wish somebody would have told me. We walked into adoption very, very naive. As far as our international adoptions and bringing home an older child, which my son was 4.5, so not really older child per se, but older than my infant that I brought home, 4 years earlier. But I went into it very naive, but I also take a lot of blame on that, because we didn't use an agency. It's so stupid. Don't anyone ever do that. Honestly. You're it wasn't the worst decision ever, because it brought us our kids, so I don't regret it one bit. But all that to say, I don't think I really reached out and surrounded myself with people that had walked down this road. But also, Rachel, in my group of friends, we were one of the first ones to adopt. I mean, I didn't know anyone else that had adopted. When I moved to Austin, I didn't know anyone else that had adopted or was in the process. And so that was hard. But I think that something that Aaron and I have done well has been pretty transparent with our people, not online, but our people and our real people that we can touch and hold their hands and cry with. we've been pretty transparent and vulnerable with the struggles that might come along through parenting through adoption. And I know that you do that as well.
Absolutely. Well, and I think too, a lot of people think, you get an infant and they're like, there's the idea that they're a blank slate and you can just kind of parent them, but it's
true.
Really not true. It's not true at all. There's some hard times that we've definitely had. But I think you're exactly right that you're with the people that you're supposed to be with in your life, and the right people come into your life, and those are the individuals you can open up and share with. But it's really hard to strike a balance, especially because I write for a living. So this is what I do.
That's why it's hard.
Share, but I don't want my kids to ever learn. This is one thing I've really thought about. I don't want them to ever learn a piece of their story for the first time when they find mom's book laying around the house.
Yes.
Or, they hear a podcast or whatever it is. Like, I want them to hear it from me first, not from someone else.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's good. I really value the way you're doing that because it's been this road I've been trying to find as well. And what it's done, which is the opposite, is it's pulled me back from writing a little bit because I just feel like, well, wow, I don't know what to say, which is bad. If I don't have anything else to say, then I think we have a problem that's bigger than that. But I just had to think about it as well. And social media in general. I mean, I was looking at your Instagram and I didn't see one picture of your kid's face. Do you put your kids' pictures up?
No, I don't. I've been very, very guarded about that.
I noticed that as well. I was going to say, as my kids get older, I ask them before I post anything about them and have to have their approval, which is why you only see pictures of mainly two of my kids because they're the two that say yes. Everyone's like, do you not like your other kids? You never put pictures of them. I'm like, well, no, they say no. And so they don't get their picture up. It's kind of funny. But man, thanks for sharing your story. And I love talking about adoption, and I'm so proud and happy and just everything about that you wrote this book. So Come Rain or Come Shine is a great book if anyone's interested in that. And I'll put a link up for it. Hey guys, before we get back to the show, I want to tell you about another sponsor for today's show, and that is Lily Jade. You may have heard me talk about them on the Christmas special, and I fell in love with them then, and I got a bag of theirs, and I literally love it so very much. Lily Jade bags are just an incredible value for what you get. Normally, a full grain leather premium tote would retail for hundreds more, but thanks to their unique e-commerce model, Lily Jade's able to get their gorgeous pieces into even more women's hands. Their most popular styles can be worn 3 ways: over the shoulder, crossbody, or as backpacks. And guys, I want to let you know, these are like diaper bags. This is what they sell them as, but I'm way past the diaper stage, and this is such a fabulous bag for me. It's my computer bag. I love it so much. It zips. It has so many organizational places. It's beautiful. Each bag comes with a removable, washable 16-pocket organizer to protect your investment and to organize your gear. Lily Jade's not just a great bag company, but their heart is to give back, supporting all women and especially mamas. Every month, for example, they give away a bag to a deserving adoptive mom, and they run monthly campaigns on Instagram to celebrate the everyday stories of amazing women. Be sure and follow them on Instagram. It's at LilyJadeCO. Lily Jade CO, and join in to share your story. These Lily Jade bags would be the perfect Mother's Day gift. So if you're interested in checking out their stuff, find them on the internet. It's Lily, and it's just one L, LILY-Jade, JADE.com. Check them out. Okay, guys, back to our conversation with Rachel. Okay, but I always ask my guests 3 things you're loving and what you're reading, so I'm ready.
Okay, so I'm reading The Hands-Free Life
by Rachel
I've heard a lot about this. And I just met her 3 weeks ago. I was like so excited. Rachel, I was like, Rachel, it's another Rachel. Let's talk. And she was fantastic.
Oh, that's so wonderful.
I'm reading Wife After God by Jennifer Smith. And that's just like a 30-day devotional. Her husband wrote one too, so I bought it for my husband. And they're great because they're short. I don't know who has time to light a candle and have Kleenex and Bible study for 3 hours every morning.
Say it one more time. What's it called?
Wife After God.
Okay.
Yeah. Hey, it's like about God and being a wife, and I love it. And the girl's real. She's not like, she just keeps it real, and that's what I need in my life. Isn't that what we
need and love?
Yes.
I know. I need
Absolutely.
real as well. So Hands-Free Mama, can you give me a synopsis of that? Because I've heard about it at several places. Yeah,
so she's written 2 books, Hands-Free Life, and then I think Hands-Free Mama is her other one. And I'm reading Hands-Free Life right now, but basically she's just talking, she's me. She's me. It's the type A personality. It's being driven. It's trying to do so many things and not being able to do it all, which we all know we can't. So she just really gives practical strategies on how to minimize things and prioritize. And so her book has been a tremendous blessing in my life.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah, she's fantastic. And then the other book I'm reading is called The Honest Toddler, and it's written from the point of view of a toddler, and it's basically like how ridiculous we are when we're parenting toddlers. Is
that from the Twitter feed?
Yeah, you've probably seen her. She posts things and they go like viral constantly. This author, her name's, I don't know how to pronounce her first name, but it's Bunmi. It's Bunmi. She's a Canadian woman. And she's hysterical. You read it and you're like, this is exactly it. We parents really have no clue what we're doing ever. Like, she's right. So
this is hilarious. I think if it's the Twitter feed that's the same, it just cracks me up. I laugh so much every time I see it.
Oh, yeah, because we just know then we realize as parents, we really, the kids got it going on. So she's hilarious. So I try to balance a little bit of humor within the seriousness and then, having a devotional.
Oh, yes. So funny.
Yeah.
Like I'm looking at the Honest Toddler Twitter feed and it says this. If you're wondering, yes, we do know just when to wake up. It's called sibling prevention.
She's writing a new children's book that has a title we can't probably say on the podcast, but it's going to be.
I'm looking at it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm,
oh, yeah, we can't say that on this show, but no. It looks funny.
But the girl just keeps it real, which is what we need, isn't it? In a day where everything's so Pinteresty and Instagrammy and perfect with the filters, like she's not messing around. I love her.
No, I love it. I'm going to find one more to read because it's so funny. Here's one. Adults, enjoy Valentine's Day, but please remember your financial situation and that you can't afford another child. I beg you.
She always writes from the point of view basically of her toddler, so she's like, here's what your toddler's thinking. I need unbroken crackers. Do not dare bring me a cracker that's broken.
Oh,
and I need red fruit juice. That is what I need. And if you mess it up, you need to call grandma and she'll set you straight. I mean, this girl is she's hilarious.
Oh, this one says this. Walked in on mommy and daddy wrestling. I knew they played after I went to bed. Sleeping in the big bed tonight. Oh my gosh. It's so funny. Yes, I crack up at this Twitter feed all the time. Yeah. It's so funny. Okay, so I need to get my hands on that book for sure. I'm trying to get through the book Room. Have you heard of this book?
I have heard of it, but
there was a movie.
Yes.
Maybe you've heard of the movie, but the book is called Room, and I really am like 65 pages in, and I can't get through it. It's one of those, and I'm wondering how far am I going to go before I put it down. But I keep hearing people love it, and so that makes me. I'm the kind of person I'm like, well, if people love it, I don't want to miss out on the party, so I'm going to keep going. If you hate a book, how far do you go?
I usually don't get past the first 3 pages. I'm very, very picky because I've just read so many books that if it's terrible, I'm like, no, I can't do this.
Man, I know. Here's me with books. I feel so obligated to the author that I owe it to them because I know they put so much time into it that I feel this weird obligation to finish. And I know it's weird. I don't know this woman personally, but I feel like if I ever met her, I would want to tell her, you did a great job. I know you put a lot of time into that, and I finished it. It's weird.
I know. I just have to be so choosy now. I mean, I don't even get through one sentence on a Twitter feed, and the kid's like, "Come wipe my butt," or whatever.
I know.
Whatever, somebody, or
that is true. I'm like, why am I taking so long?
I know, but I'm just addicted to books. I guess it's not a bad addiction to have, but it's like I know what you mean. It's just so, and I do feel obligated to the author. It's like when you were a kid and you thought your stuffed animals came alive and you had to take care of them because you don't, it's the same deal. The authors, they're a real person out there, and you're a writer, and you're working on things.
That's why I think I feel it too as a writer. I feel like I need to tell them that I'm so proud of them for what they did.
Yes.
I owe it to them to acknowledge their work.
Yes.
When I read the most is in the obvious times, Vacation with No Children, or On an Airplane. I traveled last week. I read 2 books. It was crazy because I flew all the way to Portland, and good Lord, I did not realize how far Portland was from Austin. I mean, I felt like I was on an international flight. I'm like, it took me forever to get there. But I read 2 books. I read one on the way there and one on the way back. And so I like reading on airplanes.
Yeah, we're getting ready to go on a trip, but I won't be doing much reading probably, but I know what you mean when you get to go by yourself. And I mean, I'll stay up ridiculously too late at night, alternating between reading a book and writing my next book. I mean, and then I'm like, why do I need coffee so much? I don't understand.
Do you like to read particular things when you're writing something particular?
I mean, right now I'm working on a new book that's going to be very humorous. So reading The Honest Toddler is very inspirational for me because it gets me in the mood, right? To write like a funnier book. Adoption is so deep and heavy, and it's a heart topic.
Yeah.
And so it's so exhausting sometimes that I read almost every adoption book that comes out, and sometimes my friend is like, you got to stop. Like it's just, but it's, I just devour books. Like I want to devour cookies, but I can't because I'm diabetic, right? Like I just need to devour. And I read, I don't know about you, I don't have an e-reader. It's ridiculous. I mean, I was in English. Yeah, I don't have an e-reader. I read the paper book from the library that smells like library. And
I like paper books too.
Mm-hmm.
I went through a stage a couple of years ago where I was reading on a Kindle, and for some reason it worked then, but now I really do like holding a book in my hands. Although traveling, doing that, and bringing 4 books with you is stupid. So I know why people use them when they travel. But anyhow, what's your next book about that you're writing?
So it's going to be an adoption book, as I just, as if I haven't written enough about it, but it's going to be humorous, and it's going to be one of these, like a girlfriend type book. So it'll be like you and I having a conversation, except it'll be in a book. So I'm like 1/3 done, but it's very hard to write a book with children.
Yes. I hear you.
So, and sometimes I should just go to bed instead of staying up and writing, but I'm always excited about it. And when I get an idea, I really can't let it go. Like I feel like if I don't do this, who's going to do it? Or somebody might do it, but I'm the one who should do it. So I
go with it.
Yeah, so I'm hoping to complete that project probably by the end of the summer. We'll see though.
Good for you. I am in the midst of about to start writing a proposal for my first book, and so it's like hanging over my head, and every week it's like I have to schedule writing time, and stuff comes up, and all my kids are in school. So I mean, you would think that this would be just easy peasy, but it's not.
No, it's not. And it's also, it takes so much vulnerability because your book will be available forever, and people will know what you put in it forever, or so it is a very, very scary. People come up to me all the time. Oh, you're a writer. I've always wanted to write a book, and I'm like, I don't know though. Have you always really wanted to write a book? Yeah.
Oh, okay. So what are 3 things you're loving?
Oh my gosh, today I went to Starbucks.
Okay.
And they have cookie dough cake pops, and I shouldn't,
Right.
But I was like, there's probably only 10 grams of carbs in that cake pop. So I should probably, because I have a podcast today. So why shouldn't I have a cake pop?
Exactly. There you go. I can always
so
find a reason why I should have something. Okay, so cookie dough cake pop.
Oh, yes. I mean, yes, absolutely. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I have a friend who makes cake pots. I just said cake pots. That would be a different kind of, that would be like something else to sell. She makes cake pops. And every time I see her cake pops that she puts up on Instagram, her name is Jamie Golden, and it's Jamie's Rabbits is her Instagram feed. But they're amazingly beautiful. It's like a work of art. So I don't know that that's what you got at Starbucks, but cake pops can be really beautiful.
Now I'm going to follow your friend on Instagram.
I know, and then you're just going to drool over all of these cake pops.
Diabetic lust right now all over those cake pops. Yeah, I told my husband, I said, when I die and I get to heaven, I'm going to make God just give me 500 funnel cakes, and I'm just going to eat until I'm like things I shouldn't have or can't have now. It's just going to be amazing.
They're not going to affect. You're going to have it. You're going to have it all. Okay, so the cookie dough cake pop, what else?
I'm just loving, that. Maybe this is such a minor thing, but it's been 70 and sunny this past weekend. Of course, it's going to snow 4 inches tomorrow, but 70 and sunny this weekend. And I'm in my driveway in my pajamas with a lawn chair sunning myself. Yes, I am. It's so not classy, and I love it. It's just, it just felt so good to be in the sunshine. We get cabin fever really bad here in the St. Louis area from winter. And then the third thing, I discovered St. Louis has a 90s hip hop station. I mean, come on. This is like my teenage years.
Right? Yes.
Oh, I have it on. The kids are like, Mom, what is this? I'm like, shh, Mommy's rapping right now. I'm busy.
It's all fun and games. I've done that too. I've pulled up some 90s hip hop rap, which is really fun when adults sing it. But when your daughter starts singing like Baby Got Back, it's just not funny anymore because I was like, what if she does this at school? Oh, dear Lord. It's funny at the house. It's not funny in 2nd grade. Oh, I'm a big fan of 90s hip hop. Let me tell you.
I mean, I told my husband the other day, I should have a 35th birthday party and we're going to have a 90s hip hop theme. And he goes, I don't know if anybody's had a 35th birthday party. And I go, exactly. That's why I should do it. Because I should be the first one. Come on.
Agree.
Why wait until a decade birthday? What's the point? No,
there's no point. You can have a birthday whenever you want.
Yeah.
And have cake pops there too. Dang it.
I was just thinking Yes.
Oh, okay, Rachel, this has been so fun chatting.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me. And I just love your podcast and everything you're doing. And you're just really, I think, reaching to so many women with all your different topics. And you're amazing. Thank you for doing this.
Well, thank you. I say this all the time. This podcast is by far my most favorite thing I've ever done. And so one of my most favorite things about the podcast, and this is the honest truth, is just getting to have amazing conversations with amazing women doing amazing things and then letting everyone hear our conversation. And so thanks for joining me. It's a lot of fun.
Oh, thank you for having me. Keep doing what you're doing. You're just really doing an awesome job.
Thank you. Guys, wasn't that a great conversation with Rachel? I loved her perspective on how open and vulnerable she was about her health and her struggles within the adoption process. She had lots of wisdom on that, and I really enjoyed it. And I encourage you to get our books if you're interested in any of that stuff. Remember, everything that we chatted about is going to be up on my website, jamieivey.com. Guys, I'd love to hear from you. My favorite social media platform is Instagram, so find me over there. It's at Jamie Ivey, Jamie Ivey. I'm also on Facebook and Twitter. Tell me something you love from this show, or tell me something you love in life, or just tell me hi. I don't care. I just want to hear from you. It's so fun. Today's show was edited by Knox McCoy, and the music is from Jason Poe. Guys, enjoy their week. Share the show with a girlfriend and have a happy hour with a friend. I'll see you guys next week.